We're almost there. We're near
so
the
close.
end.
So
We're going to talk
close.
about our 10 favorite games from 200 to 101.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and indeed, we've been working our way through the top 1,000 games on Board Game Geek, taking each set of 100 games and choosing 10 from that set that are our personal favorites.
Yes, indeed. And so now we are to 200 to 101, which means the next video is going to be the top 100 games on Board Game
of the
Geek.
series.
And I'll tell you, it's been getting harder and harder and harder to make these lists, and these ones are like, oof, there's so many incredible games.
I know.
Down in the comments below, people have been doing this list along with us, so make sure if you're doing that, continue on. We want to see your list go through this whole series.
What are your 10? In the meantime, we're going to give you ours right now.
Our number 10 from this 100, God, we're getting so close to the end, is going to be Pandemic/Pandemic Iberia, because actually both Pandemic and Pandemic Iberia are in this 100 here. Pandemic Iberia is a little bit higher, and that's probably how we'd rank it as well. If we had to pick one Pandemic to play for the rest of our lives, it would probably be Pandemic Iberia, but luckily we don't have to make that choice because there's many different versions of Pandemic, and they're really fun. Pandemic is a game, base Pandemic, where you are trying to cure diseases. There are diseases going across the world, there's pandemics happening, and you are trying to research those diseases and cure them and get them off the board. You're trying to cure all 4 of them before you lose and get kind of overrun. Pandemic Iberia is the same game, and it's still like 85% the same game, but you're in Spain a while ago. So you're in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, but this is back in the day, and so there's no curing of these diseases. You're essentially just trying to research them and treat them. But you can also set up train networks so you can get around the map a lot quicker. You can set out like water treatment, because a lot of the problems was just from unclean water. So you're basically trying to put out water treatments, and that'll stop new disease cubes from going out, which is cool and thematic. And it's just got this really cool look to it. We love Pandemic. It's the game that got us into the hobby. It's the reason why we do this as a job, basically. Love Pandemic. And Pandemic Iberia is also just really, really good.
Number 9 from this series of 100 is going to be Ticket to Ride Nordic countries. This is our favorite version of Ticket to Ride. We are of Scandinavian descent. We have a lot of family that still lives over in Norway, who we get to visit from time to time. And we love that this is a 2 or 3 player map of Ticket to Ride. Typically, we're playing games at 2 or 3 player count, so it's perfect for that. We love that it's about, the country and area that our family is from, and we love that it's got pure Christmassy vibes. It's just snowy and wonderful, and I don't know if it's supposed to be Santa, but there's definitely like a Santa Claus-like figure on the cover. It just is a great one to play around the holiday season. Ticket to Ride Nordic Countries just hits that sweet spot for us, and it's a perfect map because it keeps that kind of competition for space because it's a more tight and small map with the 2 to 3 player count, which is perfect.
On number 8 is actually one of my first modern hobby games I've played, and first like true Euro game I ever played, and that was Suburbia. Suburbia is still one of my favorite games of all time. This is a game where you're building out a suburb, and you are putting out hex tiles out, and these hex tiles are gonna be different parts of your suburb, like fast food places, different kinds of housing, office buildings, freeways, airports, schools, basically anything you would see in a general city and generally in a suburb city. And this game blew my freaking mind when I first saw it, because this game's all about adjacency and where you put stuff next to it. You're trying to increase your income, you're trying to increase your reputation, because that's how your city grows. And so what you're doing is you're going out and you are putting out these tiles, but like I said, the adjacency matters. So you don't want like an airport right next to like housing districts, because it's gonna be loud. They're not gonna like that. So you might gain income for that, but your reputation's gonna go down. You want freeways next to like office buildings, because that's who's commuting and using those freeways. And when I first saw it, I was just like, what? That's crazy. That makes so much sense that you would want the fast food place in the green areas, which is the housing areas, because they're the ones going out and getting fast food. That makes total sense. And it just blew my mind. And it really ushered us into the hobby. Like I said, Pandemic is the game that got us in the hobby originally, the first hobby game we played, but Suburbia is what made me go like, whoa, this is nuts. And that's why it's still here, because I absolutely love it. I think the game itself is still very, 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 very good, but I have so much nostalgia with it, and I absolutely adore it.
Number 7 is Space Bass, or Space Base if you must, by John D. Clair, who's one of our very favorite designers. Space Base is a fantastic game in which you are building out a fleet of ships in these different spaceports that are numbered 2 through 12, and you are rolling dice on your turn, and you can activate one of the dice, both of the dice individually or the paired set. So if I rolled a 3, for example, I could activate areas 1 and 2 or the third slot of my board. As you're doing this, these slots are gonna give you money and victory points and things like that, and you can buy better and better and better ships that will slot in and replace old cards. But the cool thing is, when you have a card that gets replaced, it actually flips upside down and goes behind your player board with just a little tag sticking up, and that's gonna be something that activates if on the other player's turns, these numbers get rolled, you get stuff. You get to get money and victory points and stuff, even if it's not your turn. So this is something that we think is always a great move in games because it means you're always engaged with what's going on. There's no need to check out for 10 minutes in between your turn. First of all, it's a quick game, so it's gonna come back around to you quickly, but you don't wanna miss anything because you don't wanna miss out on gaining stuff, which allows you to kind of build up that engine. We just love the fact that you get to kind of upgrade your board so you're always getting something no matter whose turn it is. That is Space Base, it's a blast.
Number 6 seems to make its way into every dang list we do, or close to it. This is Scout. We absolutely love Scout. This is our go-to small box card game. You can play this game with anybody, and it just seems to go over so well. It is also a little Oink game, so it's very small. You can pop it in a pocket or in a purse or a bag or a car or whatever. It's just so good. This is a ladder climbing game where you are playing out cards, and when it's your turn, you need to beat whatever card or cards is on the table. Someone plays a 2, you can play a 3, boom. And whenever you beat the card or cards, you get to collect them, they're gonna be worth points. So once you get to 10, which is the highest card, what do? Well, then you can put down a pair of cards. Say 2 1s will beat a 10, or a straight like 3 4 will beat 1 card, and then pairs beat straights. And so you can keep putting out bigger and bigger versions of bigger and bigger hands of cards essentially. But when you get your original hand of card, a big part of it is that you cannot rearrange your hand. Each card will have 2 different numbers on it, so you can't rearrange your hand, but you can turn it over. And when you're playing cards from your hand, you have to play them next to each other. So if I have like 1, 2, 3, if they're not next to each other in my hand, I can't play those 1, 2, 3s. You can only play stuff next to each other. So the game is all about trying to manage your crappy hand, basically. You always get a hand being like, this sucks, this doesn't work at all. But okay, if I get this card played and I get this card played, I get these 2 played, then all these cards are together and that's gonna rock. And so it's just so interesting every single time you play it because there's a new puzzle with every new hand of cards. It's absolutely outstanding. We bring it everywhere. We play it all the time. Scout's the best.
Number 5 is It's a Wonderful World. This is a fantastic card drafting game where you are going to be running a civilization in a semi-near future world where there's definitely sci-fi elements and kids have gills and things, but it's sort of more or less our society, just a peek into the future. This is a fantastic game because it happens really quickly. You're drafting out cards and you're ultimately trying to construct these projects, which are listed on the cards themselves. And there's a fun balance point between how many cards do I put out for construction that I have to get X amount of resources of certain colors onto them to be completed and then enter my empire and start producing goods or be worth endgame points or whatever it might be. But each card also has a recycle ability. You can basically trash a card or recycle it to gain a specific listed resource on it, which is gonna help you complete your projects. That's a vastly important thing in the game, is how many cards do I put down and construct, and how many do I spend to fund those constructions? And then you go into a production round where, based on the cards you already have completed, you'll start to produce resources in a specific order. Midway through that round, if I produce a certain, the black resource, for example, and it completes another card, that instantly goes into my empire. And if it produces resources that haven't been called out yet this round, they will go active that current round. So I love that aspect of trying to find the balance points. There's a bunch of cards that are worth endgame points based on usually the kind of colors of cards you've completed and things like that. So it's got some set collection elements. It does a lot of stuff in a very short period of time and can accommodate like 5 players with the base game and 7 with expansions. There's a lot to love here.
Our number 4 is going to be Viscounts of the West Kingdom. This is probably our favorite of the West Kingdom games. Actually, I think it is our favorite of the West Kingdom games at this point. We really, really love Viscounts of the West Kingdom. This is a rondel game where you have your Viscount that's kind of going around this big circular board, and it's kind of, Mike always refers to it as a deck builder in slow motion, where when you get cards, you'll play a card out to your board, and your little player board can hold 3 cards, and each round, one of your cards at the very right is going to get kicked off your board and go to your discard pile. And then you put that new one on, they all slide over. And then eventually you'll get to the point where you are out of cards, you'll have to shuffle your discard pile, but you're constantly getting more and more of these townfolk and getting more and more of these cards. So you are deck building, but you're doing it in this kind of like slow molasses-y way, where it just is really, really smooth, works like butter, but it just is all kind of happening in slow motion. Well, where on the board, what you're doing is you're going around, you're putting your people in the castle, trying to have more of your people than anyone else. Around the edge of the board, you're trying to build a whole bunch of your buildings. You're trying to get like manuscripts and things like that. It's just so much fun. And the main reason why we like this one and why it's our favorite of the West Kingdom games is because it just works like butter. It's just smooth. And I really, really enjoyed this one. When we first played it, it was by far my least favorite, but as we played it more and more, it's just ... climbed up for me, and I absolutely adore it.
Number 3 is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. This was the Terraforming Mars game for us. We enjoy Terraforming Mars just fine. Obviously, we wouldn't have this game without that one, but Ares Expedition is really the game for us at this point. We really love the kind of simultaneous play that Ares Expedition brings, and we love the action follow mechanisms that are kind of brought forth from like Race for the Galaxy in Puerto Rico and things like that, where we're all going to select a phase that we want to make sure happens this turn. There's 5 types of phases. They will only happen if someone selects them. And if you're the one that selected that phase, you get a better version of that phase, but everyone still gets to participate in production, for example. So little things like that I really love. Nick and I aren't so keen on the kind of area control aspects of Terraforming Mars. This game gets rid of that. So for us, we're like, great, that wasn't why we were here anyway. We're here for the card play, and it keeps that intact. And it gives you all those good engine building feelings from Terraforming Mars in a slightly quicker time. It's not super duper quick, but it's much quicker than maybe a 4-player game of Terraforming Mars would be. This one is fantastic.
Number 2 is, is it our favorite Vladimír Suchý game? It might be, and this is Praga, Caput, Regni. Praga, Caput, Regni is just so much fun. We're big Vladimír Suchý fans. We really, really love so many of his games. If he's coming out with a game, we're immediately like, cool, just give it to me. I'm just gonna play it because I'm gonna love it. You make everything we like. And so, Praga, Caput, Regni, you are building out the city of Prague. And you're building out the city of Prague, you're trying to build the King Charles Bridge, I think it's called, and you're building up like the Hunger Wall and the cathedral and things like that. You're building out the plaza, and it's got this nice action selection system where you're essentially picking up a kind of hexagonal tile from, I think it's called the Action Crane. Action Crane. And you are, you pick it up and that's gonna give you a bonus, and you're gonna do one of the actions there. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can go about in this game. You can do certain things super heavily, you can do a little bit of everything. It kind of always works. And I really, really love this game. This game, like a lot of Vladimír Suchý games, comes down to like, you have like 14 turns. Like that's it. That's a big Vladimír Suchý thing, especially recently, where it's like you have a very limited amount of turns and you have to eke out everything you can in those turns. And sometimes you can even do a whole nother turn. So you're trying to get these resources to be able to do that second turn because it makes such a big difference. I love Praga, Caput, Regni. I taught it to some new people somewhat recently and they loved it. And I was like, oh, that's right. I love this game. Praga, Caput, Regni is so darn good. We just absolutely adore it. And yeah, it's wonderful.
So number 1 from this list is something that I'm personally offended is not in the top 100 of all time, because it should be, but it's pretty close, so I can't complain. This is Rajas of the Ganges. This is a game that I feel like we owe some amount of credit for getting us into heavier games. It's not the heaviest game, it's pretty mid-weight. maybe on the heavy side of mid-weight. But at one point in time, I was playing Rajas of the Ganges for the first time, and I was stretched to my absolute limit as a board gamer. My brain could barely handle what was happening, but it got me hooked on this game. I thought it was so ridiculously fun. It made me want to stretch my mind and get kind of stronger, for lack of a better word, to be able to play these types of games more. And Rajas of the Ganges has absolutely held up. You're building out pathways and stuff from your palace, and you are putting down markets and buildings to gain fame and wealth, and you are trying to work those two tracks, which are going opposite directions around the board. You're trying to work it so that they pass by each other, and as soon as you pass by each other, it signals the end of the game, and if you pass them by the furthest, you are the winner of that game. I just like that there's different things to explore. I like that it has dice as kind of a resource that you're spending. You are doing tiling, pathway building, kind of like a Carcassonne on your board, all sorts of things like that. It's just one that grabbed me right away and really leveled me up personally as a board gamer. And that's something that I'm really grateful for. I know it did the same for Nick. And it's just cool to think back on, like, we've had this game for quite some time, and wow, where would we be without Rajas of the Ganges?
So that is our 10 from this particular 100. Next one up is the Big Daddy, the Big Enchilada, the 100 to 1.
And what are our top 10 there? We will see you in the next one for that. In the meantime, this has been our top 10 games from the 200 to 101 set on Board Game Geek. We'll catch y'all next time.
Bye, everybody.